Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Peter Larson here in Ottawa on unceded Indigenous territory from the Ottawa Forum on Israel-Palestine. I have three friends with me today to talk a little bit about the ongoing, very difficult situation in Gaza. We've heard in the Canadian media, of course, about 35,000, maybe 50,000 people being killed. But my three guests here are all from Gaza, and they have contacts and friends who are still stuck in the hell that is Israel's imposing on Gaza. And we want to talk to each of them a little bit about what they know about what's going on and end up with what their suggestions are for what we can do. Let me just start off by quickly introducing each of the three. I'll start off with Ahmed Alnaouq. Ahmed in the bottom left-hand corner. I met Ahmed in 2018, the year of the Great March of Return. We spent a week together. Ahmed introduced me to lots of interesting people, some of whom I'm still in contact with, and some of whom, unfortunately, have been killed. And I enjoyed meeting Ahmed, and we've maintained contact ever since. The year or two previously, I met Yousef. Yousef, I think you were at the IUG at the time. I think I met you at the university. And we had I remember having a thoughtful conversation with you, and I'm glad to remain in touch with you ever since as you pursued your postgraduate career. And Karama was my I have never met Karama in person. She was introduced to me by a common friend as when I was looking for someone to help me learn Arabic. So Karama was my Arabic teacher. And as it turns out, I've said to her many times, she was an excellent teacher, but I'm afraid I'm a little bit old to doing a very good job of learning Arabic, so the results aren't there. Anyway, thank you so much for all three of you for spending some time with us today. Maybe I'll just ask each. I'd like to ask you, where are you now? As I know none of you is currently in Gaza, and that's one of the reasons I chose you, because people in Gaza are at some risk, I think, doing interviews. But you are no longer directly in Gaza. And so where are you now, and how did you get there? Maybe I'll start off again with Ahmed. I think you're muted.
Oh, sorry. So thank you very much, Peter, for having me again. We spoke many, many times over Zoom. So yeah, I'm happy to be back. So yeah, I now live in London, and I came to the UK in 2019. That's during the March of Return, but I think a few months after I met you, to do my master's degree in the UK. I did my master's and then I set for work.
Okay, great. Yousef, where are you?
Thank you, Peter, for the introduction. So currently I am in Istanbul, and I finished my postgraduate studies last year, and I'm about to print my PhD in book format. And I believe you asked the question about where we on October 7. I was actually at the US-Canada borders. I'm going to talk more about this later, but currently I'm in Istanbul, and the majority of my family are in Gaza. My mother and youngest brother are here with me in Istanbul.
Okay, we'll come back a bit on how you what happened on October 7th, but Karama, where are you?
Yeah, thank you so much, Peter, for introducing me. And I'm really, it's my pleasure to be in this discussion and to take a part of this discussion. Currently, I am in Cairo. I evacuated from Gaza last 2 months ago. I arrived on the 3rd of March. Yes, and I am stay here in Cairo.
Okay. So then I'll just go in reverse. Where were you on October 7th, Karama?
I was in Gaza, and I can say like I spent 150 days in Gaza before I come here. I spent like 150 days of the war. I spent it in Gaza. I was in North Gaza. My house it is in North Gaza, if I can just like say that now, because the map of Gaza, it became like South Gaza and North Gaza. My house, it is very close from the Ashifa hospital. It's located on the west of located very close to the sea. Since the war started, I was in Gaza. We spent like 10 days. And on the 13th of October, we were told or ordered to evacuate to Rafah. So since we had that cold, me and my family, we evacuated to South Gaza.
So let me interrupt for a second, Karama. What do you mean you were ordered? Like what practically? What telephone call or what does order mean?
On the 13th of October, I received a call on my phone. It was from the Israeli army. They asked, it was like a record. When I just like pick up the phone, it was like Israeli army phone number. And when I pick up the phone, I received a message. It is recorded, like, for your safety, you have to evacuate the area, because they consider that my area where I live in North Gaza as a risk area. And they need to do, like, they announced that it is a closed military area. That's mean that I have to evacuate and I have to leave it. And they give me only a very short time before the morning starts. This is what they say: you have to evacuate and leave. So once we received this call, I called my brother and all my family and even the neighbors. We start even to receive, everyone in my neighborhood start to receive these calls. And so we decided to evacuate. First of all, we went to the ICRC office because it's close to my area. And then from ICRC, we went to one of the United Nations office. And then from United Nations office, we went to, all of us together, we went to South Gaza, to Rafah.
Mm. Yeah, wow. Ahmed, where were you on October 7th?
In fact, I was in Istanbul, and yeah, I was in Istanbul. I went to Istanbul, to Turkey, to have a vacation with my fiancée, who just left Gaza 2 days before the war on the 5th of October.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we arrived there. We enjoyed only 2 days, and then 7th of October happened. And then on the first day, on the 7th of October at night, my fiance's house was bombed and she lost a brother. That was on the first day of the war. Yeah.
First day of your
Yeah.
honeymoon, or whatever you call it, you're getting together with a fiance.
Yeah, she was my fiancée, not my
Well,
wife.
sort of lucky.
Yeah.
And I know then subsequently, I don't want to dwell on this, but I know that a month or two later, a bomb landed on your house, a house where I have been to meet your family, your brothers and so on, and they were all massacred. I know that, and you've shared that with me.
So yeah, on the 22nd of October, my family were sleeping in their home when an Israeli plane dropped a bomb to my home, turning it into ashes and killing 21 members of my family. My father, my brothers, my sisters, and 14 of my nieces and nephews who are all under the age of 13, and also my cousin.
I'm sorry. We're all sorry.
You came to our home.
Sorry.
You came to our home and you met with my family.
I did. I did. I met your brother. I met your father. I don't. There were several people in the household at the time.
You met 2 of my brothers who were killed. Yeah, and my father, and maybe my mother. Did you meet my mother?
I think you're very Palestinian-like. I think your mother kept out of sight pretty well. She was probably back in the kitchens. I don't have a memory of her, I'm afraid.
Yeah, she was shy, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Yousef, you said you were on the Canada-US border at that time.
Yeah, so I was now currently I'm working as the Gaza coordinator at the American Friends Service Committee. So I was on a speaking tour then with the AFSC, and part of the program was visiting the US Canada borders, but also the US Mexico borders to see the contrast and the difference. And on October 7, I was at the Peace Arc Park, which is just outside Bellingham and the US Mexico borders in Washington State. And We had a talk about Gaza, Light in Gaza, the book that I contributed to, and we were talking about a totally different situation or expectation or anticipation of the future of Gaza, where Gaza is connected with the outside world, where the siege ends. And all of a sudden, I went back after the talk with my friend who's also from Gaza, and we started getting these videos and news, and I couldn't believe it. I'll talk more about it, but that's where I was. I was in Bellingham, and I spent a week in the US before going back to Turkey again.
Wow. Wow. I remember when I first heard the news, I was both surprised and not surprised. I mean, I was surprised that they were able to pull it off, but having spent the time with you folks in Gaza and seeing a lot of young people, I wasn't at all surprised that something like this would happen. And I sort of felt like it was sort of like a long time coming. It's like a kettle exploding or something like that when the heat's been turned up so long. And then and I wasn't unhappy about it at all. And then the Israeli stories started to circulate about the alleged atrocities, and I sort of for a while went through a period saying, I hope it's not true. I don't know what really is the case or now. And now maybe we can get to talk about this, but I sort of feel terrible things do happen in war, but I think that an awful lot of it has been exaggerated, and certainly a lot of it has not been proven. I'm not asking you to comment directly on that unless you want to. Maybe I'll ask you, what was your reaction, Ahmed, when you heard of the October 7th? And were you happy at first, or were you scared that something terrible consequences would happen? What was your state of mind when this is before your fiance's family was killed, so you didn't have that yet, or your own family?
Well, I was terrified.
Terrified.
I was terrified because I knew what's going to happen to Gaza after that. Unfortunately, Israel got us used to expect the worst to happen to Gaza whenever there is an Israeli hurt. Whenever there is an Israeli injured or hurt or killed or kidnapped, then that means hell is going to fall in Gaza. We have seen it in the war in 2014 when Hamas only kidnapped one soldier, and they started destroying entire neighborhoods, killing hundreds of people for just having one Israeli soldier kidnapped. So when I heard that hundreds of Israelis killed, many thousands injured, and hundreds detained, then I thought this is going to be the end for Gaza. So I was extremely worried. I was terrified. I feared for the future, for my family. I feared for everyone in Gaza, and I thought Gaza will not be the same again. Unfortunately, we are used to this, because we know for a fact that Israel is always collectively punishing the Palestinians in Gaza. They do not go after those who hurt the Israelis. They go after everyone, including the women, the children, the men, the innocent, the hospital, the houses, the buildings. I know all of that. So for that, I was terrified. And I did not expect it's going to end soon. I did not expect it's going to end easy, unfortunately.
Yousef, did you have similar kinds of thoughts, or?
Yeah, so after the first moments and hours and days of shock, I realized that it's real. So I was surprised, extremely surprised and shocked, and I had a mixed feeling of fear and anguish and worry. I told my friends who were around me that Israel is going to level Gaza to the ground. And this is actually what happened, because as Ahmed mentioned, after 76 years under occupation and settler colonialism, where we saw Israel redefining brutality in many different ways, we got used to the way Israel responds to Palestinian attacks, which are rare. Usually it's the other way around, that Israel is attacking Gaza. Over the years, we have a history of Israeli attacks on Gaza starting from 1948, the 50s and 60s, 70s, 80s, annexing land and the brutality of Israelis have never surprised us. But this time, it's a totally different level because, as Ahmed said, they went after hospitals, roads, infrastructures, homes. They just destroyed for the sake of destruction. And I felt so worried for my family that I think Palestinians in Gaza at the time, at least some of them, did not realize the consequences of what happened and how Israel is going to respond. But
sorry,
for people who...
You're saying some people in Gaza didn't really appreciate what was going to happen, is that right?
I mean, no one appreciates Israel's response and brutality. I mean that people were not aware of the way Israel would respond in a brutal way to the attack by destroying Gaza. Everything in Gaza that we know, our memories of friends, of hospitals and schools and homes. So this is what I mean. But of course, we've seen this before. This is not the first time, but the magnitude of destruction is something that I don't think that any other country experienced in modern history, including Germany after the Second World War. So the amount of destruction and Israel, Israeli leaders who announced early in the genocide that no water, no electricity, no fuel for Gaza, said they will send Gaza back 50 years back. And they were very clear about it. And they did what they threatened. They were very clear. They did not shy away. And they knew that they will, get away with it. And that's why, they did it.
Mm. Karama, do you have a different perspective? It's a woman's perspective, perhaps, or what? What were your thoughts on this? Were you also worried? You had to have been worried.
Yes, of course, because I was on the field in Gaza at that time. So I really shocked when I heard and I saw these things. And I also saw people celebrating, some of them at the beginning, because they felt like this is really like for the first time that we do something great like that. But I was expecting the worst, to be honest. And I also decided to leave Gaza immediately at that time. But, at that time, many people also wanted to leave Gaza because they felt like the consequences, it will be the worst. And because according to the experience, because we also experienced escalations before that, and we know how Israel responds in escalations. They respond extremely in violence and against Palestinians and innocents. So I was expecting something like that will happen, but not to go to Rafah, not to that much. But even it was over our expectations. And as my family and I, we also want since that time we wanted to leave Gaza, but directly they also airstrike the crossing, and then the crossing closed, and we couldn't leave.
I'd like to just pick up on something you said there, Karama. You mentioned that when the news first came of the breakout, there was some celebration in Gaza. People were happy that people had broken through the fence and so on. Now, in the West, you may know, in Canada, elsewhere, it was sort of portrayed that Palestinians were very happy that they'd killed a bunch of Jews. And so what was your feeling of what was the celebration for, or the nature of the celebration? Do you remember?
Yeah, this is, I understand my people in Gaza. The people, they celebrated because they have been under they have been under the occupation and the closure we are talking about long years of suffering. So for the first time for them that they tried to do something. So the people who celebrated, they wanted to say like, yes, we want to break this siege. We want to break this closure. We want to do something. We are there. So the celebration is not about killing, but the celebration, like, we want something. We want to break this, and we need rights. They want to show the world they are there. And this is that's why people they want to show these things. And this is the celebration, what they show in front of media and how they were celebrating that. yeah, you can't only just like talk about or to see how they celebrate, but you have to understand that this celebration, it comes after from the deep and very tired people, and people who are actually suffering from lots of things and for a long time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Tell me, each of you now, about your friends and contacts in Gaza. Where are they? I don't want names, obviously, but what is their situation? Is everybody? I watching this from Ottawa, find it hard to believe that anybody is still alive there. The situation just looks so atrocious. I don't know why everybody isn't dead, but they're still. In fact, it turns out, I guess maybe we could say less than 100,000 have been killed. I don't know what the right number is. Certainly a huge number, but still only a small percent of the total population. What kind of contacts do you have, and how are people living? What are their options? Before you answer that question, I want to say to the audience, if you have questions, we will turn to questions from the audience in a few minutes, but please put them in the Q&A. Grafton Ross, the vice chair of the Ottawa Forum on Israel-Palestine, is working in the background, and he will be watching your questions, and he will be putting them to the various commentators in a minute. Sorry, back to you. Your contacts or family, your friends. Ahmed, why don't I start with you, Ahmed?
Well, first, Peter, let me allow me first to comment on your previous statement. You said that many Canadians thought that the Palestinians are happy to kill a bunch of Jews.
Right.
And we have to talk about that. We have to remind you. And I don't even think that we should say it, but I have to say it right now. The Palestinians are not happy to kill a bunch of Jews. We don't have a problem with the Jews. We don't want to kill the Jews. We have nothing against the Jews. And those who say that the Palestinians are happy to kill the Jews, or we want to hate the Jews, they're either racist or sheer ignorant. We have no problem with the Jews. We have a problem with a Zionist entity that is determined to kill us, destroy us, ethnically cleanse us, and make us live in cage forever. Gaza is, before the 7th of October, Gaza was the biggest open air prison in the world. And that's not according to Palestinians, that's according to the UN. And when some Palestinians, I wouldn't say not all Palestinians celebrated the breakthrough of this siege, but when some Palestinians celebrated the crush of the siege of the prison around them, they were happy not because the Hamas killed the Jews, but because for the first time, someone broke through the prison that is physically imposed against them and keeping them like starving, and did not allow them to have the freedom of movement. So for these Palestinians who celebrated, they celebrated breaking the siege, breaking the barriers, not killing the Jews. We have no problem with the Jew. We never had a problem with the Jew. Actually, the hate and anti-Semitism and the bigotry against the Jewish people is not a Palestinian thing. It is a European thing. It's a white thing. It was not invented by us. So these people who are like white privileged, who are living in Europe and Canada or America, when they say that we hate the Jew, they should look at themselves in the mirror. They are the instigators of the hate against the Jews, and they are the anti-Semitic, not us. We have lived in Palestine with the Jews for millennia. We never had anti-Semitism. We never attacked the Jews. We never fought the Jews. It is you who did all of that, not us. So allow me, every time the word Jewish or Jew is mentioned to us, the Palestinians, I get infuriated, because this is not us. This is not our thing. It is your thing. I'm not talking about you personally, Peter. I'm talking about, to the West. So as for your second question,
while you're on that one, I'll remind you of something that was striking for me. You and I were in a taxi in Gaza, and I asked you, you were translating for me, I asked you to tell my taxi driver that I was Jewish, because I wanted to see what his reaction would be. And his reaction was more or less, welcome to Gaza. I remember being quite struck by that. And I've talked about that a lot with Canadians, that because people would say, well, that'd be a dangerous thing to do. I say, no, it wasn't a dangerous thing to do at all.
Anyway. I'm really sick and tired of this ignorance, of this racism that we have to endure all the time. We the Palestinians, we don't need to explain this to you. You should know that already. But the Western media is failing you. It's failing the Canadian people. It's failing the American people. It's failing the European people with disseminating lots of lies and misinformation and racism and dehumanization of the Palestinian people. And it shouldn't be us who want to challenge that. It should be like already given to you. So I don't want to talk more about it because it's infuriating. So the second question, I forgot what was the second question.
I was asking
Sorry.
about who you're in touch with now and what their situation is.
Yes. Yeah, so as I said, I lost most of my family members. I still have two sisters who are in Gaza. Luckily, they are still in their homes because they live in Deir al-Balah, and Deir al-Balah was one of the least areas that was affected by this bombardment. Now, the Palestinians who live in the north and the south and everywhere, they're just like concentrated in Deir al-Balah area. So basically, like most of Gazans who had to leave their places, they are in Gaza. Luckily, my sisters are still in their homes, but unfortunately, it's very, very difficult to keep contact with them. The last time I spoke to my younger sister, it was like maybe a month ago, and then I couldn't have contact with her. She doesn't have internet connection. She doesn't have electricity for over a month. So I have no idea what kind of life she's having right now. My older sister, I talked to her like 2 weeks ago, I think. But it's very, very difficult to talk to them now. Every time I need to talk to one of them, she has to go and visit a neighbor who has internet connection, or they have like a solar panels so that they can charge their phones. It's very, very difficult and challenging. And their life is very difficult. They're literally going through hell. They're sick and tired and frustrated, and they're full of despair from everything. But yeah, getting in contact with them is challenging. It's very challenging, unfortunately.
How do they don't have electricity? Israel said they cut off the water, they cut off the food, how do they actually have a breakfast? How do they eat? How do they find stuff to eat? Help us understand a little bit what the practical situation is.
In the beginning of the war, literally, one of my nieces told me that they're starving. They haven't eaten for a few days. So it's very, very, like, having food and water is very difficult. And when there is food available in the market, it's very, 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 very expensive. We're talking about like 1 kilo of sugar, for example, it's 40 or 50 shekels. It used to be 1 shekel, for example. So food is very, very scarce. And if there is food in the market, it would be sold for like 10 or 20 times higher than the price it used to be. And most of those who are in Gaza, they don't have any jobs. Like they lost their jobs. Even those who are employed with the government, they haven't been paid for months right now. So these sisters, like my sisters, they're lucky to have me outside Gaza. So I always like send them money to just pay for the food. But other people are literally starving because they don't have anyone to send them money on regularly. And the food that is in the market, it's not like the food that was before. They live in cans, for example. Like these canned food, they depend on it. There's no chicken, there is no meat, there is like sometimes there would be chicken or meat, but it's very, very scarce and very, 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 very expensive. Stuff like chips or crisps, it's a luxury that they can never afford. So they're living on minimum, like the minimum requirements.
Yeah. Karama, you still have family in Gaza now? Some of your family got out and some didn't, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, my brother, he's still in Gaza. Me and my sister, we evacuated. He managed to send his kids and his wife to Egypt, but he's working in Gaza with one of the international organizations. When I ask him, like, how's the situation, he says, like, it is worse than before. But exactly as Ahmed said, because what Ahmed said, I also experienced it during the 150 days that I spent in Gaza. Yeah, I want to just like to explain how it works, or how it becomes, how the situation developed from worse to worse, or from bad to worse. You know, at the beginning of the war, it's exactly like Corona, you know, people, they know like it is a war, and so they rush all of them to the supermarkets to buy. They collect food as much as they can because they know like the closure will start and the war, and they have experience. What does it mean, war? This is the first level. The second level, it is after that, you will feel there is lack of food in the supermarkets. And duties to this, then the prices will be higher and increased. After that, which is actually now, we reached to the level, there is no liquidity in Gaza. There is no money in order to buy. Even if you had in your credit card, or if you have money, but you don't have cash in order to buy things. So the luckiest people who really can find after days to, if they manage to have few cash, but that doesn't mean that you can buy things. So it is increasing, the situation, it's increasing. And now, just like 2 days ago, I'm lucky because I managed to send liquidity to my brother. And I told him, like, I don't know if I managed to do it this month, but I don't know what will happen in the coming months. And I think, Ahmed, you also heard about this, that there is no, people in Gaza, they are suffering from no liquidity. That's right? Yeah, so everyone knows about this,
So there is no cash in Gaza, no cash. Even if you want to send money to your relatives on bank accounts, like if you go to the bank, they will not give you cash. There's no cash in banks, and most of the banks are destroyed. So even transferring money to your family members, it's become a nightmare. You'll have to depend on some cash offices or transfer mediators, and they take up to 20% charge for any amount you send to Gaza. Yeah.
Well, tell me then, because I think all of you differently have talked to me about GoFundMe exercise. I always wonder, how much of that money actually gets to you, and how does that get to Gaza? What is it all just a scam, or does it actually, do the GoFundMe things actually get some money through to people?
At the first few months of the war, like, it was easy to send money because the ATMs and the banks did have some liquidity, but right now it's become more difficult. Right now you can send money to Gaza, but you'll have to pay up to 20% of the money you send to as fees, which is crazy. So you can send money, but unfortunately it's very difficult. There are other ways we used to depend on if we want to go, like the coordination fees, which is paying the money in Egypt to this company. But right now, like, they even closed the border of Rafah. So even if we want to do that, it's very difficult to get people outside Gaza as long as the Israelis are in control of the border. So I don't know, this all doesn't make any sense now.
Yeah. Yousef, is that also your experience, or who are you in touch with there, and what is their situation?
I have the majority of my family in Gaza. My father and all my siblings, except two, and all my sisters, and my mom left Gaza, but the rest are in Gaza. I have about five sisters and two brothers, and my father and their kids. Total of 15 nephews and nieces. The vast majority of them are sheltering at my parents' home. My sister's house was destroyed in Maghazi refugee camp. My own apartment was destroyed in another building, not in my father's house. At least half of my extended family homes were destroyed in Khan Yunis, in Nusayrat, in Maghazi, and many of them are displaced in Rafah and Khan Yunis, in Deir al-Balah and Nusayrat, or at families' homes in different parts of the south. Also, my family in the north of Gaza had to evacuate to the south, and as Ahmed said, sending money is very difficult, and these exchange offices charge a lot of fees and commission money to give you the money in cash, and they still like scam you. You send the money in US dollar, for example, but they force you to take it in Israeli shekel, which is the local currency in Gaza, at a way more cheaper price than the price of the market. So there are multiple, layers and challenges people face on the ground: access to water, food, is very limited and very challenging and very expensive and very rare. The majority of people depend on aid distributed by UNRWA, but now the Rafah crossing is shut down, and even in the south of Gaza, and UNRWA is not operating in the north, or Israel is not allowing UNRWA to operate in the north for political reasons. It has nothing to do with October 7 and their lies and claims about some UNRWA stuff, which was refuted even by the Israeli media and UNRWA itself and the UN reports. None of UNRWA's workers participated in the attacks. They just wanted to dismantle UNRWA because it's a symbol for Palestinian refugees. So they're not allowing UNRWA to operate in the north. And now UNRWA is still in the south, but they do not have the means to help people. All these trucks waiting at the Egyptian side of the border and coming up with stupid ideas such as building a pier off the coast of Gaza when you have thousands of trucks on the Egyptian side that can literally cross within minutes into Gaza is just a very stupid and expensive idea. So far, it costs about 320 million US dollars. So the situation is very catastrophic. When I met my youngest brother here in Istanbul, he lost a lot of weight, and everyone in Gaza lost weight because people are starved. And even if they have food, I think the best person in Gaza has access to 2 meals a day or a meal a day. And then being, subjected to non-stop bombardment 24/7, the stress that comes with that, the mental challenge and struggle of people pushes you to lose weight. So everyone in Gaza lost weight. People are starved. There are actually people, a dozen of people who died because of starvation, actual starvation by Israel that claims to have the most moral army in the world, blah, blah, blah. So this is the situation. Either you're displaced or killed or in prison. I have a friend who saw Israeli soldiers burning his family's home in front of them. Then they took him as a prisoner of war. Their other home was destroyed by an Israeli airstrike, and he has a PhD in water engineering. His father was killed. He spent weeks in Israeli detention, tortured and humiliated. He told me that I was almost shot. He was threatened to be shot by soldiers. His father was killed, and they had to bury him on the street because Israel bulldozed graveyards, and it was very risky to bury him at a graveyard at the time. So this is the situation of people on the ground. Tragedies after tragedies. My friend Ra'ed Qaddura, who I believe Ahmed's brother Mahmoud, who also I knew, was in Malaysia a month before he was killed. Ra'ed was also in Malaysia. He did his master's and PhD. I believe you also met him in 2012 when you visited Gaza, because we were working at the same place. He was killed along with 53 members of his family, including his newly born twins, who were born 2 weeks before they were killed, and his wife had to give birth. She had a C-section without anesthesia at Kamal Adwan hospital, and then they were bombed. She's probably the only survivor in the family. She lost her eye and leg, and she's receiving treatment now in Cairo. So, this is the situation that we have today. People are being starved. We are under siege. We always lived this, but it was a very low magnitude process of starvation. Israel has always had a policy of calculating the calories that Palestinians in Gaza have before October 7. So this was our life before the siege, 17 years of siege. More than 700 people lost their lives waiting for Israeli permits to be treated at hospitals in the West Bank, including my sister. So that's why, to answer your question about Palestinians celebrating, some Palestinians celebrating what happened on October 7, is breaking the chains of this siege. We are telling the world that it's not okay to die slowly and in silence. We've been dying slowly and in silence for 76 years. Sometimes mass massacres, sometimes 10 Palestinians killed. Even in the West Bank, there over 500 Palestinians who were killed by the Israeli army and settlers since October 7. No one talks about them. No one talks about thousands of missing people in Gaza now. They only talk about October 7. So what about October 8 and 9 and 10 and every single day since 1948? Why is our death okay? Why do we have to pay the guilt of European, people who committed a horrible crime against Jewish people? That's not our fault.
Right. No, I'm with you there. I see we've already used up 40 minutes. We only have 20 minutes left. I do want to ask one question of each of you, and don't answer it if you feel uncomfortable. But given what you said, Ahmed, about how you realized that there was going to be massive Israeli retaliation, what do you think Palestinians in Gaza, not you, but do they think that Hamas made a mistake, that this was all Hamas's fault? Are they turning against Hamas, or do they think we have to stand up and fight somehow? What's your sense of what people are thinking?
Well, when we talk about Gaza, we have to remember that Gaza is not just one person or two people. It's like a community of 2.3 million people. These people have different backgrounds, they have different beliefs, different ideologies. There are entire population. So it's not very easy to tell you what the Gazans they think or what they believe. Like they're different, and many people have different opinions. Some people like are pacifists, for example, and who hate war. Some people who believe in the right of the Palestinian people to armed resistance, for example. Some people think that it's not the time to do this operation by Hamas. Some people believe like, okay, we're sick and tired and we just want to do something. So it's very difficult to tell you what the people in Gaza think, because they are diverse, they are different, and they should be like any other community. They have different opinions. Like I believe in Canada, you don't have like everyone agree with one political party or not. Here in the UK, like people are divided, some Labour, some conservative and whatever. So I believe people in Gaza are also different in the same manner. Some people believe in the armed resistance as a method to liberate Palestine. Some people believe, no, this is not the right time. Some people believe in the negotiations and peace talks. And some people, like, they don't just care. And some people will very, very scared of this armed resistance because it will bring suffering and trauma and misery to the Palestinian people. So I don't know how to answer this question, to be honest. It's just different. It just varies. I've talked to many, many people. Some of them agree to it. Some people don't agree to it. But we have to also to remember that what the conception that we have, or we believe what happened the 7th of October, is very different from what you have in mind. The Western media in Canada and the US and Europe, they have been disseminating false news about what's actually happening or what actually happened on the 7th of October. We have heard a lot of reports about 40 decapitated babies, like bullshit, nonsense, lies, and rape used as mass weapon of war against the Israelis. All shit, not true. We have been hearing a lot of rumors about like babies killed or baked in oven or hung on the clothesline. So there are a lot of like wrong and misleading information that you hear in the news there. But in Gaza, we don't believe in that. So I find it very, very difficult to believe that some people in Gaza who agree to the concept of killing civilians or innocent people. I don't think anyone in Gaza believes in that. No one likes the killing of civilians. No one agrees with rape. Of course not. No one agrees with that. I think the people who agree with the 7th of October or celebrate the 7th of October, they saw it as the resistance for the Israeli army and the troops, and it break through this physical presence that has been surrounded the Palestinians in Gaza. But I find it very difficult to tell you what the overall Palestinian are saying about it.
Yousef or Karama, do you want to add anything on that, or?
Yeah, so to add to what Ahmed said is that Palestinians in Gaza have used everything in their hands in the past to call for an end to Israel's brutal siege. And to give you an example, in 2018, about 300 Palestinians, 20,000 were killed, and 20,000 Palestinians were injured by Israeli snipers who bragged about shooting Palestinians in their knees and shooting children and sniping Palestinians as ducks. This is what they said in the Israeli media. But again, I find it really difficult when the word only express sympathy. The reaction that we've seen, we haven't seen this reaction when Israel did the same thing to the Palestinians over the years. So why is one people's suffering is more sacred than the suffering of the Palestinian people in Gaza? I mean, we have to remind the world again and again that Palestinians in Gaza live under occupation, not above occupation. Because this is how it feels sometimes, that we are responsible for our own misery and suffering, even before October 7th, that we are responsible for the siege. I mean, didn't the international community tell Palestinians go for the election? And then the international community imposed a siege on Gaza because they didn't like the results of the election. That was the reality. So what do the Palestinians do? They tried, if you look at the history of the Palestinian national movement, I believe from 1878, I recommend reading the book by Dr. Mazen Qamsiyeh on popular resistance in Palestine. There were 14 Palestinian uprisings throughout history, intifadas. The vast majority of them were non-violent. But what did the Palestinians get? They lost more land. More Palestinians were arrested. The siege in Gaza was tightened. Israeli settlers gone crazy in the West Bank, attacking Palestinians, uprooting their trees and burning their homes and churches and mosques, including babies, in their sleep. So what is the way out? If Israel doesn't want to, and there are credible reports, that Palestinians have been saying this forever, but there are credible reports by credible international organizations that what Israel is practicing in Palestine and in Gaza is apartheid. So either Israel has to choose, do they want to maintain their military occupation forever? Or do they want to become an apartheid state? Or do they want to give Palestinians their basic rights? It's either you give people their rights or you expect, some responses. Some of them will be violent. I mean, Israel did not practice non-violent resistance against Palestinians. They never did that, indeed. They never, Israeli soldiers never walked through Palestinian neighborhoods without guns and raising their hands and calling for peace, peace, peace. It's the opposite. The Palestinians who did that. Even Palestinians, just like regular Palestinians, going back to their homes from work in the first Intifada, they were humiliated and they were asked, to dance or remove Palestinian flags. Or that was always our life under occupation. We tried everything, including the Great March of Return. It was peaceful. What happened? Brutality was always the answer. What makes this brutality different since October 7 is that it's more intense. And as I said, Israel redefined brutality, but Israel was never nice to us. We always lived under occupation, but metaphorically, we say we live above occupation because, despite what happens to us, we're still determined. I mean, there are different examples in the world. Canada has finally apologized to its indigenous people. And there will come a time when Israel apologizes to the Palestinians. We have different examples in Ireland, in South Africa, people, and in Algeria. I mean, France didn't say, France also said Algerians and the FLN were terrorists. This is what settler colonialism is about. They dehumanize people and they blame them for their own misery. But then there will come a time when, the world is fed up with this. People no longer believe that Israel is the victim. You're killing 45,000 people, destroying cities, towns of 2.3 million people, destroying the whole infrastructure. You cannot play the victim's card here. So people are aware, and that's why in Toronto and elsewhere in Canada, in the US, in Europe, in the UK, you have these student encampments. You cannot deceive young people. It's over.
Okay, it's now 10:02. I promised some of the audience that have a chance to ask questions, but your answers have been so full that I'm crowding them out. So Grafton, can you pick out of the list there questions? We'll see if we can And maybe you, Grafton, could think to direct them to one person rather than having three people answer each question, because that will take too long.
Okay. First, I'd like to, I'm shattered by your testimonies, Ahmed, Yousef, and Karama. Many of the participants have expressed in the chat their sincere condolences for your losses. We're all very, very sorry. I should say that people may not be aware just how small Gaza is. It's 40 kilometers long, but it's very, very narrow. I can compare it to Ottawa. Gaza is only as wide as if you walk from Parliament Hill to Billings Bridge. You can do that in a lunch hour. That's the entire width of the Gaza Strip. The Al Mawasi humanitarian area, where the Israeli army has told the 2.3 million Gazans to seek refuge, is as big as Centertown plus Ottawa East. It's Sandy Hill, sorry, as big as Centertown plus Sandy Hill. So for you, those of you from Ottawa, you'll realize just how impossibly small that is. One question, and this I can I'll direct to Peter, because I think you can answer it very quickly. People are asking, are not counting more well-known sources like Al Jazeera and Middle East Eye, what are some other good, less mainstream social media pages or people to follow where they could get information and better understanding of what's actually happening?
Great question. Given our small amount of time, I would include some links in a follow-up email that I send to everybody who's registered, along with the video of this recording. So rather than taking our time now, I think that's a great question, and there are some very good alternative sources.
Okay. One participant has asked if oil has been discovered off the coast of Gaza. I believe actually it's natural gas. And is this controlled by Israel? And does this fact of natural resources off the coast of Gaza have does it factor into what's happening?
Who are you directing it to? Okay, go for
I
it.
can handle it.
Ahmed,
Yeah, so
or Yousef, yes.
So the new seaport built and the military road built in Gaza to separate the middle area from Gaza City, which used to be an Israeli settlement called Netzarim, is very close to the Gaza gas field, and Palestinians have never been allowed to make use of this gas and use it for their own benefit. I don't think that this is a reason why Israel waged a war, but the fact is that Israel will not allow Palestinians. And there is also another example, Rantis oil field in the West Bank. Palestinians were never allowed to use these natural resources for their own benefit. But I don't think that the genocide and the destruction of Gaza has to do directly with the gas field of the coast of Gaza.
Thank you. One of the participants would like to send financial aid, and they were confused by the comments that some of the panelists have made about how to get money into Gaza. And so perhaps somebody could explain that again.
Okay. So as I said, the cash in Gaza is very, very, very limited. It's like there is no cash, but there is a little bit of cash. So if you want to send money to Gaza, for example, when I send money to my sisters, I send to them on the bank account, Palestine bank account, for example. If I send them 1,000 shekels, they will receive only 800. So 20% will go as fees by the offices that take the money. So what we do, like I send the money to someone who has some cash, like the office, like I don't know what they call it, exchange office, and they take a 20% fee of the money that you send. So the money is very, very little, but there is a way to send money, but it will take a 20% fees. This is like just in shortcut.
Maybe
But
I could expand on
the question is, what should we do?
Yes, what organizations could people send money to? How could they support people in Gaza at this time?
I can't. I don't know.
I highly recommend like donating for UNRWA or any NGO that accepts donations on behalf of UNRWA. I don't know if you have this in Canada, but for example, UNRWA USA can accept donations that goes to UNRWA. And there are some medical delegations getting into Gaza. I'm trying to remember. Med Global is the name of the delegation. So I think these people are very important on the ground today. But at the end of the day now, things are limited because of the closure of the Rafah crossing. So political action is needed to pressure. Canada finally decided to refund UNRWA, but then we have to pressure Israel to end its occupation of the Rafah crossing so that aid can get into Gaza.
Thank you. One of our participants would like to know what life is like for Gazans who have managed to escape to Egypt. How difficult is the situation there?
That's for Karama, I think.
Yeah. Thank you, Don, for your question. To be honest, the Palestinians who managed to leave to Egypt, they are actually feel like they are stuck in Egypt because we have a limited visa. Once this visa is expired, that means that you can't do anything in Egypt. For instance, if you wanted to receive money from Western Union, you can't receive money because your visa is expired. And also, if you want to travel, for instance, or to make another visa to travel to any country, you can't do it also because your Egyptian visa is also expired. And by the way, the Egyptian authorities, they give us only 45 days, which is actually officially only 30 days. And after that, you are actually illegally in the country. That means any formal thing that you wanted to do, you can do it once your visa is expired. And we actually talked to the embassy about that. We tried to tell them like, this is, I really can't work. Even in let's say companies, in Egyptian companies, they also can't accept me to be an employee because I don't have legal residency in the country. So they consider that I am illegally in the country, and this is a risk for them to hire me in their companies. So this is really very big problem for all Gazans. But we talked to the embassy, and the embassy, they also said that they can't also do anything in order to solve this solution, as long as the war it is still ongoing in Gaza. And they say that this is Egyptian government solution. They have to find it for, or to provide it for Palestinians. And so far we are just like stuck. We don't do anything. We can't work. We can't do anything. But for me, I'm just like giving classes, and this is a freelancing work. Yeah, you can think also widely about that. I'm talking personally about myself, but you have also to think about people who evacuate with their families, for their kids. They can't also, the children, they can't also go to any of the Egyptian schools. I'm talking about the private or government school, because they don't have residency as well. So to be illegally in the country, that means that you can't do anything in the country. You are in a, just like you move from one small prison in Gaza to a big one. That's it.
Karama, I know you have to leave fairly shortly, and we have to wind this up fairly soon, but two things. Karama is an excellent teacher of Arabic, very well organized, and I enjoyed working with her for about a year. I actually did learn a little bit of Arabic, not as much as I would have hoped. The other thing, Karama, you have to explain to us, it looks to us Canadians like you're living in luxury there in Cairo. We see a very fancy looking house behind you. How were you able to buy such a fancy house?
Yeah, I am really lucky, because this house, I have a friend who actually, she is a German lady. She's very supportive to me, and she was my student as well. She came to Cairo when I was in Gaza during the war. She believes that I will demonstrate and I will fight in order to get outside Gaza and to continue my life here in Egypt. So she rented this house for me. And I really wanted to thank some of the Egyptian people who are really very welcoming, and they hosted us since they know that I'm from Gaza. They make discount for me in order to stay in this house. And they told me that they put for me the price which is affordable for me in order to pay the renting of the house.
Okay, thank you. Ahmed and Yousef, are you guys good for another 15 minutes or not? I had promised 1 hour. I know that Karama has to leave. Are you okay, Ahmed and Yousef, or not?
I'm okay to stay for another.
Yousef,
Yeah,
you as well?
me too.
Okay, that's good. So Karama, leave when you have to, but I'll thank you before you leave. So Grafton, back to thank you so much. Back to other questions, Grafton, for Yousef or Ahmed.
Certainly. I encourage people to put questions in the Q&A. There'll be still time to cover a few more. One of the participants is wondering why people in Gaza were celebrating when Hamas accepted the last deal. Surely they must have known that Israel would not accept it and had no interest in advancing the process.
I think, yeah, go for it, Yousef.
Okay, so I think quickly, people did not understand that Hamas agreed to a modified text that was proposed by the Egyptians and Qatar at the time. They thought that this is a text that Israel agreed to, and then Hamas didn't want to agree to, and then they decided under pressure or for a different reason to agree to. So they thought that it's resolved. All parties agreed to, but immediately Israel said, no, this is not the text that we want. Although this text was proposed by the Qataris, the Egyptians, and the Americans.
And I've got to ask the question, looking forward. This has been terrible. On the other hand, I see that, for example, in Ottawa and in Canada, Palestine is on the agenda in a way that it wasn't. When I came home from the Great March of Return and saw people being shot, I did a few slideshows about it, but really it didn't create a ripple in the Canadian society. Now, the future of Palestine and frankly, the future of Israel is up for discussion. Do either of you want to speculate on the way things, what are the various options, the way things may move forward here? Is it a catastrophe for the Palestinians and now the Palestinian struggle is over? Or is it a catastrophe for Israel because it has so isolated itself and so forced the Americans to go against world public opinion that it won't be able to support Israel anymore? Those are the two extremes. You probably have thought somewhere in between those.
Well, I believe it's very, very, very sad that it took us a genocide. It took a genocide for the Canadians to put the Palestinian cause on the table. It's very, very sad. It's very sad that it took us a genocide where 35,000 or 45,000 people killed in Gaza, actually, including the 10,000 people who are under the rubble and another 100,000 people injured, and the total destruction of Gaza. So that Canada is finally blessing us with looking at the Palestinian cause, and we want to do something for the Palestinian cause. And they're not actually doing something for the Palestinian cause. I think they started discussing Palestine because they feared for Israel. I think it's very, very, very sad. And I think this conflict, this war, this genocide is not only the making of Israel or the Israeli terrorist organization, terrorist army. I say it's a terrorist organization, the Israeli army. It is a work of the US, it's the work of Canada, it's the work of Europe and the UK where I live. They have all contributed in the destruction of the Palestinian people. They have been providing Israel with the weapon. My family was killed with an American and Canadian and a British weapon. It was a bomb that was manufactured in the US and the UK and Canada, by the way. So all are complicit. All these colonial powers are complicit in the war against my people. They have been complicit against my people since the Nakba. Since the Nakba, they have been complicit. And because they are complicit, not only, by the way, the governments, but also the Western media, the Canadian media, it's terrible, it's disgusting. And the American media and the British media and all of this media have contributed in like vilifying the Palestinian people, portray us as savages, as terrorists, as we hate the Jews and all of nonsense. So all of that contributed to this genocide that is unfolding in Gaza and Palestine as well. And I believe that because you are all complicit, I think you all should work hard. The people are not complicit. The Canadian and the American, the British, the people are not complicit. The governments are complicit. But because it's all done by in your name, I think everyone should do more work in order to pressure their governments, your government, stop aiding Israel, so providing Israel with the weapons that they need to kill us. I believe that the Palestinians, I don't think we are powerful enough to stop this genocide right now. So we need the help from everyone. We need the help from the international community. And that's where a huge responsibility lies on every single person all around the world to pressure their governments to make action.
I don't think many Canadians appreciate how complicit Canada is. Canada in 1947 was a member of the UN Special Committee on Palestine. We voted in favor of confiscating 55% of Palestine to give it to European Jews. We did that in part because we felt sorry for what happened to Jews in Europe. We did it in part because we didn't want those Jews to come here. So it was a simpler solution for us to support having them go to take your land. And Canada bears a great deal of complicity right from the beginning. Every single prime minister of Canada since 1947 has supported Zionism, and we live with the consequences today. Did you want to say something, Yousef?
So despite what happened in Gaza, the local council in Gaza takes from the phoenix, a bird that lived in Arabia, as its symbol, and this bird always rises from the ashes. And this is the story of Gaza. Gaza was destroyed throughout history, so this is not the first time. But as Ahmed said, it's really unfortunate that it took us a genocide for us to be brought back to the international stage when the world almost forgot about us. One of the positive aspects of October 7 is that it brought Palestine back to the international stage. When there were many attempts to normalize with Israel while ignoring Palestinian rights and without supporting the rights of the Palestinian people. But now, if you look at the streets everywhere in the world and universities and investment funds and protests, unions, they are with Palestine. They're passing resolutions to support the Palestinian people. Even governments in Europe, for the first time, they decided to recognize the Palestinian state. So long term, Israel wished that they could get rid of us in 1948. It didn't work. In 1967, it didn't work. We're still there. They managed to kick some of us, half of us out. But we, Palestinians have a lot of babies. So we continue to exist and we will continue to exist. We're not going to disappear. Even in Gaza, if you look at the north of Gaza, what happened to the north of Gaza would push an entire country with its population out. It didn't happen. Why? Because of the connection that Palestinians have with their land, that Israeli settlers lack and will never understand. I mean, this is what settlers do. They have no connection to the land. So even after 7 months and 8 months of bombing, crazy, insane bombing of the north of Gaza, we have 500,000 Palestinians who stayed in the north. Israel wanted to get rid of them, to take over the north. This didn't happen. And Israel's plan failed. And it's going to fail in the north, in the south as well. Now they're building military roads. They're using this, the idea of allowing Palestinians to go back to their homes in the north as part of the negotiation process with Hamas. Fine, they can do that. But at the end of the day, they will fail in Gaza. And Palestinians will continue to be in Gaza. They will continue to be in the West Bank. They will continue to be in 1948 and what is today Israel. They are in the diaspora. You cannot get rid of them. The easiest way is not to get rid of the Palestinians, which failed, The easiest way is to do what Canada finally did to its indigenous people, to apologize and reconcile. This is the way forward. And I see it. They're more, the situation politically, Palestinians are doing very well today. There are many countries that are supporting them. Israel is being taken to the ICC and the ICJ. Israel is defensive. They're saying, we didn't commit genocide. We're cute for the first time. This is happening. This is a milestone. And I think the future is ours.
Inshallah. Yousef and Ahmed, you're passionate defenders of the rights of the Palestinian people, and I admire you both. I admire all three of you, including Karama, for doing that. I support you. You seem to be saying that the way Canadians can most support the Palestinians now is not in transferring monies, but in political support. Is that? I hear you saying that right now there really isn't much way, except through these major organizations like the UNRWA or the Islamic Relief or whatever. Is that right, or is it still useful to do the GoFundMe's?
I would definitely encourage people to support major aid organizations because we have a humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza taking place. Generally, I do not encourage people to give aid because the problem is political. Mm-hmm. Supporting the political rights of the Palestinian people, pressuring the Zionist government in Canada to end its support for Israel. Because at the end of the day, you give Palestinians aid in one hand and then you give Israel weapons on the other hand. What's the point?
Okay. Ahmed, is there ways we can help you help your sister?
Just to pray for us and work. We need more political action. Right now, I don't want to call anyone to just like because of the guilt that you have to just pay money to the Gazans. We need political action. Mm-hmm. We need political action. If you want to help Gaza, amplify the voices of the Palestinians, work, demonstrate, protest, pressure, write to your MPs. Make some noise, because it's not about Palestine or Israel anymore. It's about a human life. It's about a human suffering. It's about a genocide, and you have to do something to stop that. Mm-hmm. I know each person, each individual on their own, you can't do a lot of things, but collectively, you can do something. And do not underestimate any effort that you can do individually. It can build up. So I encourage you to make some action.
Okay. Thank you, both of you, so much. There have been lots of expressions of sympathy, and that will be joined with support. And I'm sure you've motivated many of us to write a letter, go to a demonstration, be active. For those of you who are watching, my little organization, the Ottawa Forum on Israel-Palestine, functions a volunteer organization. Small donations to us are helpful because it allows us to pay for our Zoom calls and website and so on and so forth. So we will send a note in the follow-up email to you and invite you to make a small donation to us. In the meantime, Ahmed and Yousef and Grafton Ross in the background, thank you so much for spending time with us today. You've been very helpful, and we wish you all best of luck going forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.